Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 67 of Cameron's Nostalgia Podcasts. I'm your host, Cameron Strickland, and today I have with me Jeff Zahn. How are you?
I'm terrific, thank you.
Nice. Now, for any of the guys who don't know, Jeff is a composer and music supervisor for Wimzie's House, Caillou, Arthur, and Spooky the Square Pumpkin in Madeline. Francis, Mashana's Show, and Are You Afraid of the Dark? And many more. Oh, don't forget Norman Pickle Stripes. So, welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you, Cameron, for having me.
You're welcome. So, let's begin our first question. How did you get interested in music?
So, my name is Jeff Zahn. I was born in New York in a town called Brooklyn, New York, and my mother and father both loved music. My father was a professional musician that played at weddings and bar mitzvahs, and I grew up, and my mother loved the instrument called the cello. Like a big violin, and I played cello through high school. But my first love, Cameron, was composing. I loved to compose, but I played cello very well. And when I graduated college with a cello degree, I was able to play cello at many places. It's called the Studio Cellist, Westbury Music Fair, and I toured the world. I also played a Broadway show called Cats as a cellist. But my first love was writing music, Cameron. I loved to write music, and that playing cello was nice, but writing music was more edifying and satisfying for me. So I started writing jingles and commercials and kind of fun things, and I met a young man from Great Neck, and we wrote some songs together. And one of the shows we wrote for was called Who's the Boss? That's a nostalgic show with Tony Danza. And it was recorded a song by a guy named Ray Charles, a very famous singer who passed away. And it was a successful song, and I became a writer of music. And I love writing, and I met a guy from New York named Joe Raposo, who was a very famous composer for a show called Sesame Street. Joe and I became friendly, and I wrote for his company. Joe became my mentor, and sadly, he died of an illness early. And as a result, someone had to take over those shows, Cameron. And so I was given the wonderful but sad job of continuing Joe's shows. And the first show was a show called Madeline. Joe wrote the first couple songs for Madeline, but I took over and worked on the show with a woman named Judy Rothman. And we wrote like 5 or 6 episodes of Madeline. And my career was born. I became a kids' music writer, writing for a kids' show called Madeline that was on the Family Channel. And the company that Madeline was broadcast, that was worked on, was called Cinar, Cinar. And they liked me enough that they hired me as a music director and a composer. So I had a really blessed beginning that I was able to work for this company called Cinar. And I came in at the beginning of the company where they were just starting. And so they were just starting to do shows. And I was very lucky to be at the beginning. So after Madeline, we did a show called Bunch of Munch, which was an animated series that was beautiful. Then Care Bears. Then we did a show called Arthur. Arthur was very, very popular, and that grew very, very big. I was the music director. I wrote some of the songs. I helped produce the opening theme song, helped arrange it. I went down to Jamaica to work with Ziggy Marley. And then Arthur landed to Caillou, which is a very famous show, animated show. And then many, many more, probably 50, 60 series Wimzie's house. We did live action like Lassie. We did animated shows like Caillou. We did films. And my role was to shepherd and direct the music and also to write. So I wrote many, many songs, 50, 90 songs for Wimsey's House. I wrote many songs for Arthur. And it was a very joyful career that I got to work with so many talented musicians and actors and singers. Lucky for me, the company was in Montreal, this beautiful city, Cameron. I think you're Canadian. So Montreal is a beautiful city, and I'd get to go up there almost every week and work with some of the most talented actors and singers and musicians. And it was a very wonderful career for me. I'm very appreciative that people like you appreciate the shows from the 80s and 90s and 2000s. A lot of these shows were in the 90s and they're still wonderfully written. Arthur's a wonderful show that's on TV now. I still continue to write music and supervise music. A couple of years ago, I did a show called Norman Pickle Stripes, came out of England, and that was on, I think, Peacock, I'm not sure, sort of Universal, and that ran. Currently, I work with a show called Spookily the Square Pumpkin. We're on every year Halloween. We had a sequel called Spookily and the Christmas Kittens that was on Disney for years and years. It's on Netflix. I do a lot of YouTube TV for them. I'm going to Minneapolis to do a show pretty soon on Spookily. So that's a very busy project for me. And I work with other shows. Hope that answered your question, Cameron.
Nice. So, what was your first music gig?
Well, I was a cellist, so my first music gig when I graduated was playing cello for a lot of different acts. I played at a place called Westbury Music Fair. So your young but very young acts, new acts at the time, was Sammy Davis Jr., Bob Hope, Earth, Wind and Fire, Frank Sinatra, Barbara Streisand, Rodney Dangerfield, comedians, actors, singers, shows. That was my first gig. But my first writing gig, as I mentioned, was for a show called Who's the Boss? I wrote a beautiful song called Always a Friend with a man named Dennis Scott, and it was on the air. And then my first real gig was writing for a show called Madeline, where I was given a ballad to write, Never Give Up on Wishes. And at first, I wrote a beautiful little waltz, but they expected this guy, Joe Raposo, that wrote for Sesame Street, and they wanted to hear a song like Rubber Ducky or something very cute and funny. But it was a beautiful ballad about never giving up on wishes. And I said, you know what? I think it should be a pretty waltz. At first, they didn't like it, but then they kind of liked it more and more and more. And then when it was nominated for all these awards in Canada and an ACE award in America, they go, maybe he's pretty good. So they liked me. And that was my first gig, Madeline. And that's what got me the job working for Cinar that got me to write all these different TV shows.
Nice. So, you got to work on Madeline.
Madeline was about an orphanage where 12 little girls lived. I believe it was an orphanage or a school for these girls run by Mrs. Clavel and nun. And it was a beautiful series based on a series of books. And it had a couple songs, 4 or 5 songs every episode. The classic was, I think, 6 books, Cameron. And we did the 6 episodes, but the show was so successful, another company bought it and it went on to do like 100 episodes. But I did the original 6 books and I got to work with incredible talent in Montreal, including someone named Sonia Ball, that's an incredible talent, Liz McCrae, just wonderful talent up there that was so charming and talented. And that was my first gig. I got to write, and the composers, shows often have 2 elements, Cameron. They have songs, that is one skill set, but they have something called underscore. So that's when there's dialogue going on or action going on, and you want to put music underneath. So I would do sometimes both, but for Madeline, Jeff Fisher is a wonderful composer, and he wrote the music for Madeline, Cameron, and he did a wonderful job. It's charming and great. So, and the third element for a show, a TV show, if you like nostalgia, is an opening song. So for Madeline, it's a wonderful song. I'm Madeline, and though I'm very small, and written by Joe Raposo. That's an opening theme song. Then you have the underscore through the show, and then you might have songs within the show. So, and then the end, called the closing credit, could be the same song repeated, the opening song repeated, or an instrumental. So that's kind of when you get into nostalgia and shows, you should pay attention to what's on a show. So you have the visual element of an animated show. Pick Arthur. You have Arthur and Buster and Francine and DW. All the characters are animated, but then there's a sound, and the sound is comprised of different elements. You have the dialogue, is the actual talking, and that's kind of recorded before anything. So you record the dialogue. If I write a dialogue, hey Cameron, you're a really good-looking guy with a really cute bedroom, and I see some puppets and all that. Now the character's got to match that, so they go and they animate to that. Hey Cameron, that's a really cute bedroom with different characters, and they got to do the mouth movements. That's called dialogue. Then they have something called sound effects. So if you get up in your chair, you're going to hear a chair squeaking, Cameron. Or if the door opens, you're going to hear a door opening. So people call sound effects and Foley. That's the second element. So it's dialogue, it's sound effects and Foley. The third element is underscore for sound. So when you're walking out the door, Cameron, we might have a do 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 do. It helps the action. The fourth element might be a song. We'll sing a song about Cameron. Hey, Cameron's a really nice guy. He's a really cool guy. And we'll write a song about it. And then so underscore, song, sound effects, and dialogue. And that comprises, for the most part, the sound element. And that's all brought to a studio and it's all mixed. The dialogue will be loud, the sound effects will be lower, the underscore might be low, and there are specialists that mix that so the sound is really good. So you marry the sound to the picture, you mix them together, and that's an animated show. That makes sense?
Yes. Serb of a glitch.
Say that again, Cameron.
Serb of a glitch.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. It's a little breaking up, so you have to repeat yourself or go again.
I'm Serb of a glitch.
There's a glitch?
Yes.
Okay.
Another show you worked on is A Bunch of Munch.
Bunch of Munch is a series of books written a very cool guy who lives in Canada named Robert Munch. And it was a beautiful early animation, and he wrote some incredibly popular books. And it was a beautiful series that didn't get a lot of notoriety, but he's been in the papers a lot. Robert Munch is just an incredible human that gives back and loves kids, and he's a wonderful person. Robert Munch is the name of the author, and if you can find his books, they're just wonderful. One of his books is called "I Love You Forever," and it talks about just the generations, about a mother having a baby or daddy having a baby, and that baby grows up and has a baby. I love you forever. I love you always. And it's a gorgeous book. If I can recommend Robert Munch, Love You Forever. It's a beautiful book. And it was a gorgeous series.
And you got to work on The Busy World of Richard Scarry.
Richard Scarry, this company, Cinar, was predicated and based on a lot of quality books. They looked for great quality. There are other shows that look for action and slapstick and comedy and fun stuff. But Cinar, this company, wanted to find good literature. So Mark wrote a series of books for Arthur that are so, so wonderful. And that's great literature. Richard wrote a series of books called The Busy World of Richard Scarry. Michael Bond wrote Paddington Bear. Just wonderful, wonderful literature. Richard Scarry wrote many, many books, and his son is Huck Scarry, and he was the producer. And we did a show called The Busy World of Richard Scarry that had all these incredible characters: Lowly, Worm, and Huckle the cat. And I was the music supervisor, wrote songs for that. The theme song was written, it was a orchestra written by Milan Kimlicka and recorded in Czechoslovakia, and just a wonderful, wonderful theme song. Again, what I described is you have the dialogue, which is really funny, lots of sound effects, lots of what's called Foley, Foley, which are sound effects made by humans. And then the underscore was just beautiful. It was an orchestra playing and songs. It's a beautiful series you can probably still see today. It's really terrific.
And you worked for Wimzie's house.
Whimsy is a different idiom, Cameron. It's called a puppet show. And a puppet show, like behind you, we wanted to do a puppet show for PBS, and they use these puppets, and it takes place in a daycare center where Whimsy is a little girl, and she lives with her grandmother. Her parents, too, are pilots, and they fly around the world. And it was a really cute puppet show that aired for a couple of years around the world and in America on PBS, and I wrote the theme song, and I wrote many, many songs for that show. And it was a wonderful puppet show. And it's around the world, I still think, today.
And this show is streaming on Tubi. You can watch it.
Oh, thank you. I didn't know that. It's a very good show.
And he works for the Little Lulu show.
Um, some of the shows we did were based on books. Little Lulu was a series of a comic strip. Comic strip was probably in the 20s and 30s, but it was an adorable show based on a comic book. And what's important in animation, Cameron, is who are the lead characters? Arthur, written by Mark Brown. Mark Brown was the author, focused on an aardvark. He was an animal. He was a little boy, fifth grade, I believe. Little Lulu is a girl. Madeline is a girl. We prided ourselves in being very equal, that there were some shows that had strong boy characters as a lead and some that had girl characters as a lead. Little Lulu was a really cute little girl, and she was a lead character. Wimzie was a girl. Arthur was a boy. So we varied and made sure girls had equal billing all the time.
Nice. And you got to work on a feature film called Monster Mash the movie.
That's a different world. That's not from Cinar. Monster Mash was brought to me by my partner, Joe Triano, who wrote Spooky the Square Pumpkin. He had some dear friends um, that live in Hollywood that wanted to do a movie based on Frankenstein, the thought of Frankenstein. And the guy that wrote, was involved with it, I'm not sure how much he wrote, was a guy that wrote a very famous song called The Monster Mash. The Monster Mash is written by Boris Bobby Pickett. Bobby Pickett. He did the mash. He did the Monster Mash. And it's a really, really famous song. And Bobby Pickett is a really good actor. He was in the show, in the movie, and it was fun for me because I got to fly to Hollywood and write songs for a film, and they treated us great. And it's a cult film. Is it a great film? It's a cult film. It's a lot of fun. The cast had some really good guys in it. Jimmy Walker, who is from Good Times, is in it. Cameron, I forgot her last name, from Full House is in it. She was great. We had some really good cast members from Broadway, theater, film. So Candace Cameron was in it. Jimmy Walker, I forgot some of the others, but it was a fun, fun movie about two young kids that get caught. Their car breaks down and they go to a mansion where all these monsters live. Kind of fun. And it gave me a chance to work on a film in Hollywood.
Nice. And you're a kid. You were reading some Arthur books.
My kid was reading some Arthur books. The Arthur books were written by Mark Brown, and my company saw them and thought Arthur would make a great TV series. It was originally a Brudabund CD-ROM game, and they worked with a company called GBH in Boston. Carol Greenwald was the executive producer, brought it up to Cinar, my company in Montreal, who loved it, and we got the chance to develop the show called Arthur. GBH, Carol Greenwald were the underwriting lead producers of it in Boston, and they brought it, and we were the animation company, and that was a blessing. I got to work with the best writers from New York and Kenny Scarborough and Joe Fallon, and just wonderful people. the producers, the whole team. Very smart show, Cameron. Very popular show. I was one of the producers of the theme song. Got to go to Jamaica, Kingston, Jamaica, down in the Caribbean, and worked with Ziggy Marley for the theme song. And then I supervised the music. We had a beautiful underscore written by Rafe Bobby, who wrote the underscore. We talked about the underscore music. We had lots of songs on the show, lots of guest stars that I got to work with, Yo Yo Ma and Josh Redman, and just incredible Taj Mahal, the Backstreet Boys. Wonderful, wonderful people, guest stars. Still runs on the air. It's had over 20 seasons. Very popular show. It's a real credit. It runs around the world, Cameron. It can be seen now on PBS, many, many countries, and it's been a blessing for me. It's probably my most popular show.
Nice. So, what is your favorite episode of Arthur?
My favorite episode of Arthur, um, it might be the movie we did. We did a movie called about Pal, his dog that got lost. And it was a beautiful, beautiful movie that I got to write some songs for and some underscore. That was wonderful. There was a great episode that was turned into a musical, a live theater musical called Lucky Pencil, where Arthur had a lucky pencil that scored an A on every test, and he loses it one day. And he's panicked. He's not going to get a good grade till he learns that it's not the lucky pencil. It's just putting the hard work in and relying on yourself and your hard work. And I think he gets an A in the test, learning the lesson that it's not always luck, okay? But it's a beautiful, I had too many episodes. We did a Christmas episode where it was a double episode that was just wonderful. We did hundreds of episodes and the whole series. There's some series in TV that never jump the shark, that never do badly. Arthur was one that had so many great episodes. Lucky Pencil, the one with library card in it, learning about the library is a fun episode. For me, one of my favorites is working with, I was a classical cellist. I got to work with Yo Yo Ma, a very famous classical cellist. To work with him and have him be a character was great. Another favorite episode for me was I worked with a guy named Art Garfunkel. Simon and Garfunkel, You're Too Young, in the 60s and 70s were very popular. And Art Garfunkel was a character on Arthur. And I got to work with Art Garfunkel in the studio, and they animated him on the show. And he was adorable and fun and a total pro to work with. So that was another favorite episode. I can go on and on, but there were so many great episodes.
And he works for Lassie.
Lastly, I was a music director, supervisor, and they wanted to do a sequel to Lassie, and they brought it back in the 90s. And that's a live action show, which is lovely, lovely, lovely. I've had a really great career, Cameron, and Lassie was a live action show, and it was shot in Montreal, and the problem with the dog, the problem with the kids and the people. But I've had a real wonderful arc of a career working on animation, puppets, live, movies, long form, short form. I mean, I can go on and on, but it's just been a wonderful ride. And hopefully it's not done. I'm working spookily now. So that's short form. We do like 2 minute, 3 minute shows, and we work on 90-minute shows. I'm sorry, 1 hour shows. We do specials. So just the highlights for me to save you time is almost all the shows. It's so funny, Cameron. You can't predict what's going to be a success. We worked on a show called Dr. Zargle. Dr. Zargle, spelled Xargle, came out of England. It was smart. It was clever. It was such a good show. And it lasted less than a season. Kids didn't like it for some reason. Then we did a show called Caillou. And I didn't think it was a great script. It was very simple. It wasn't a lot in the show. He goes and mails a letter or he gets invited to a party. And I didn't think it would be a great show, but people seem to love it. Some not so much because he's bald and he's whiny, but people love that show too. So you can never predict, Cameron, what's going to be a success.
Yes, well, I like the part where Francine vomits.
Okay. I can see. Well, you've got your favorite part, and I'm not sure that's my favorite part. Vomiting is not the nicest thing, but some people like it. That's fine. People do vomit, people do get sick. Arthur was very realistic. It talked about kids in fair ways. It talked about lots of issues. It talked about raising the level of kids and intelligence and doing well in school and grades and literature and reading. So it was a very smart show.
Nice. You worked for Caillou's holiday movie.
So doing films was part of my job, and the Caillou movie was a beautiful movie. We did an Arthur movie for Christmas, and the Caillou holiday movie also. I got to write a lot of songs for that, work with a lot of great people. The great story about that movie, Cameron, was that we wanted to do a beautiful song about every day is special. The title being, holidays, birthdays. Oh, that's a special day. Oh, your birthday's a special day. Oh, the day you were born. There are lots of every day is special. You're alive if you're healthy, if you're kind to people. So I wrote a song with a guy named Adam James about every day is special. And it was a beautiful song. And my friend at Sony Records, Bill Rattari, had a young singer named Mary Lou. That's her name, Mary Lou. That might have been 13, 14 at the time, but she was beautiful voice, beautiful girl, mostly sang French, not English. And we gave the song to her, Every Day is Special. And at 14, she sang it so beautifully. I loved it. Then she phonetically did an English version, Cameron, and everybody there loved the song. But for some reason, it didn't catch on. But fast forward years later, I get a lot of fan mail. What a beautiful song it is. Every Day is Special. And at the time, you never know. It's all about timing, Cameron. They didn't really love the song, but now years later, everybody seems to like it. I get a lot of positive mail about that.
And you worked for Potatoes and Dragons.
That's another show. I don't remember that one as well. But as I said, I have 50 shows, Cameron. Tales and Dragons, yes. I don't remember what I wrote for that, but I have so many. The advantage of Cinar was they were in Montreal, and we got to write French shows because they're French, and English shows because they're English too. So we had French shows. La Maison de Wimzie is Wimzie's house. Père Castor is Father Castor. I forgot Dragons. There was another name for that. So we did many, many shows in English, and then it was dubbed into French, or was that originally recorded in French that was dubbed into English? So some worked and some didn't work. Arthur and Caillou and Whimsy's House were fantastically successful, and other shows weren't as successful. Dragons was not as successful. Dr. Zargle, I mentioned, was not as successful. But other shows surprised us all were very successful.
And you worked for Spookly the Square Pumpkin.
That wasn't Cinar, Cameron. That was my friend Joe Triano, who I work with or work for. And he wrote a book, and it was a very successful book written by Joe, but distributed by Barnes and Noble and other distributors. And we put it into an animated show for Disney, probably about 15, 20 years ago. And it's run on Halloween every year on Disney. I think this year it's on Netflix, but you can find it on YouTube. You can find it online. And I wrote the songs, but not only did I make the songwriter, I wrote the underscore, Cameron, but I'm also one of the producers. And what that means is that I kind of graduated and I bring in the actors and I help supervise the production, the things we discussed, the underscore, the dialogue, the sound effects, the Foley, and help mix it. So I'm involved with the whole production of Spookly. It's very successful. We did a sequel called Spookly and the Christmas Kittens that airs in Christmas. And in a couple weeks, you'll see Spookly right now. Go look on Netflix and YouTube. It's airing now. It's a wonderful show. As I mentioned, we're doing a live show. One tours the country already, MTI, Spookly the Square Pumpkin. And we're doing another one called Mistletoe, or sorry, Spookly and the Christmas Kittens. and that's going to Minneapolis soon. So that's very exciting. It's a wonderful show.
And he works for Shane's Kindergarten Countdown.
So for a couple of years, Disney was really interested in short form. Short form means instead of 23 minutes, Cameron, they want to do 3, 4, 5 minute shows. And they came to my friend Judy Rothman, and we did little, I believe they were 5 minutes or maybe shorter. And the first one was Shanna, the Shanna show. Shanna was a beautiful little girl, animated, and we did a theme song and underscored it. Then they did a sequel called Shane that you just mentioned. Then they did another Can You Teach Your Alligator Manners, about teaching kids about manners. We did another show called Zafranc about a chef. So we did a lot of short form for Disney that I got to write beautiful music with very talented people like Judy Rothman. So it was a wonderful, wonderful show.
And he works for Lulu Safety Patrol.
That was one of those. Disney had a bunch of series. That was Lulu's Safety Patrol was also part of that. So it was Shanna, it was Shanna Show. It was Safety Patrol. It was Can You Teach Your Alligator Manners? Zafranc was a cooking show. Um, it was, I would say, 6, 7 series. Bing, 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 bing. They were really great, quite fun to do.
All right. Uh, I was gonna say, you did very good on making music.
Well, thank you, Cameron. Thank you for having me as a guest on your show. I've had a wonderful career. I love what I do. I love writing animation. And even nicer is for people like you that appreciate great shows, whether they be current, like Spookly, or going back to Madeline and Arthur and Caillou, that are still being made, actually, and still being aired. And congratulations to you for liking that stuff. And thank you for giving me some time to talk about my career a little bit, and hopefully I shared some good stories about what makes animation special and my career. And if you have any more questions, you can call me back and we'll discuss more. I thank you for your time. I'm going to have to say goodbye, but I hope I was interesting and I was a good guest for your show.
Did you use the Emu Proteus too?
For my equipment has evolved over time, and I did use a Proteus too, but things have changed. It used to go back to hard keyboards like a M1 by Korg and a Proteus you mentioned and Yamaha. But now everything is really in the computer, Cameron. We do everything on computer using programs called Pro Tools, Logic, Digital Performers, what I use. We have one keyboard now instead of 12, and we have everything in the computer using programs like Contact and Complete and Nexus and all these different programs, and it's much more simple, which gives you a lot of latitude and makes life quicker and less expensive. But the negative, Cameron, is that anybody can do it now, and they lose a lot of the craft. So anybody that has a computer can just make music, but it doesn't make it good music. Sometimes you got to learn. It's like writing. You should know the tools of how to write a great AI can write now for you. Write a script about an animated show about a crow that flies south in the winter and all the adventures. And an AI program can do it. Doesn't make it good. So the equipment I use has changed dramatically, but it's all about the craft and skill of writing. Okay?
Okay.
So, Cameron, I'm gonna have to say goodbye for this episode. I can't thank you enough. I enjoyed it very, very much. Thank you. I have to go to an appointment, but be sure to write me, and to your guests, thank you for watching. And Cameron, you're fantastic, and you should be congratulated for doing this show. I hope it's very, very successful, and you have a lot of people that like this show because I think it's great, bringing back nostalgia, but more important, quality. Quality TV that educates and entertains, that you might learn something, but more important, you're entertained. And it's a wonderful thing in this day and age. So I congratulate you, and I'm going to have to say goodbye. Okay?
Stay tuned for maybe more guests coming up. Until next time, peace.
Peace, brother. Thank you so much. Cameron, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.